Welcome. Welcome back to 15-minute free thinking with Carpo. I should restart that because that's a horrible start for it. It didn't sound right. Didn't sound natural. Let's see. I'll delete this version. Delete. Yes. Okay. Let me start this again. Welcome. No. Welcome back to 15-minute free thinking with Carpo. Me, your host, some stranger on the internet, some long-haired hippie freak talking about random stuff, and I thought I would bring you all in on it. Why do you listen to me? Well, that's a good question. Something I ask myself quite often. I think, well, if people listen to me, then they must think I have something to say of value, which means that I have a certain obligation to present information that is at least somewhat accurate. So I try not to fall into political banter or, opinions or, let's just say, any type of this bipartisan bullshit or partisanship, I guess. Isn't bipartisan? I guess that's the good one, right? That's working with both sides. But I don't see sides. I see things differently. I see things very uniquely, in my opinion, but I can't exactly define what I mean by that. And I think that finally, in the last 6 months, people have started to come around to exactly the way that I hoped people would feel. People are starting to come around to the reality that freedom, equality, victimhood, all these things are much more complicated than just wearing a t-shirt or wearing a wristband with a certain, attitude that you're protecting the less fortunate or the vulnerable, or that you are helping out by supporting some sort of a mandate that forces people to take a medication they don't want in order to protect the most vulnerable in the population, even when and knowing the science says that we're in some shit right now. Let's put it that way. There's certain things I can't talk about on YouTube. Therefore, I have to kind of beat around the bush and use alternative terms and ideas to kind of define where I'm coming from. There's a term that's been thrown around a lot lately, which is the greater good. Doing things for the greater good. Now, I've always been a liberal-minded person who believes in protection of the weakest, protection of the homeless, those in our society that need help should be helped, because one thing I've learned about a society, a nation, is that it's a Gandhi quote, a nation is only as strong as its weakest members. I actually have that written on the side of my school bus because it was such a profound statement. I understand this because if people are suffering, you can hide from it, but it needs to be taken care of. You can make excuses and say it's their own fault, they shouldn't be there, they should get a job, they should do this or do that. It does not matter. And we see what ignoring the problem has brought us. More and more homelessness. But the crisis starts, for example, way back before housing or housing costs at actual wage. So, and I'm getting to how this connects to the current situation we have with this endemic virus. We are living in a world where we are so pre-programmed to accept the system that we were born into that we cannot imagine seeing it any other way. The hustle culture, the wake up and work your ass off as much as you can, get ahead, beat the other people, not just to make a living, but to actually get ahead. And because of this, over the last 2 years, you've seen things like, stocks or stock market discussions dominate the news rather than, supposedly this great threat of this virus, which is killing off how many people? I don't know anymore. I believe right now it's at about 1,500 a day in America that are dying from anything that where they might quote test positive when they died. The FDA, or what is it? The CDC has said that they only test everyone in the hospital, and anyone who dies with the disease, even if it's not the cause of the death, is deemed to be a victim of COVID, right? So we're looking at maybe 1,500 a day, and a lot of those are kind of blown out of proportion. From the very beginning, I remember looking back to the highest part of the pandemic, and it was about 4,000, 4,500 people a day. And I've looked at the statistics of how many of those may have just died from other causes, and it may be half. But beyond that, even if it was the full amount, a lot of folks don't realize how many people die in the United States every day. 8,000 on average. About 8,000, 8,500 people die every year. And, every day, not every year. And a majority of those are heart disease or stroke. Those are still the two leading causes of death, heart disease and stroke. There doesn't seem to be as much of a push to live healthy and eat right. And I've found this fascinating over the last year, over the last 2 years, but over the last year especially, I've seen how people have tried to reel this in as a political issue, where if you are wearing a mask or you aren't wearing a mask, if you are vaxxed or aren't vaxxed, becomes the big issue of the day, rather than, hey, what kind of a person are you? People are actually blaming their neighbors for the problem that we have. There is so much anger out there over not just this issue, but the financial problems we're having, which, started long before 2008, but have really come to a head lately as inflation takes over, as we become more of a, consumer society, and we are more and more dependent on international trade. We have a huge sect of the population saying, oh, we need to stop globalism, but often are the same people who are buying all these products, who don't understand even what it means. We need to bring back manufacturing to our home. We need to take care of our own products and be able to make our own medicines. A majority of the medicine that we take in America, for example, is made in China or India. And that's why this is the first time we've ever had to race and get our shit together. But then we come up with a shot that isn't exactly as effective as we thought it was, and nobody can change their mind about it. And I am not here telling you what's true or not. I want to make this clear. I already had one of my videos removed and had a strike against my channel for saying I just don't have the shot yet. I didn't even say anything against it. I just said I'm not one of the ones who has gone in and just said, sure, why not? But I've had enough discussions with people now who have, to realize that there are a few different classes or groups of people. One, the people who say, I got it, I'm glad I got it, I'm protecting my neighbors, and if you don't get it, you're selfish. Then there are people who I know who say, man, I've got one, but I'm kind of sketched to get the second one. And others who have said, I got them both, but I still respect the rights of others to choose for themselves. And I'm in the third class. I should say, I haven't got it, but I also respect the right for others on both sides to choose. But here's where the main part comes in, and the main component I want to talk about. I watch this closely when it comes to the approval from the FDA or from the government, who seems to kind of supersede the FDA on this. They just today, a few hours ago, approved, FDA, or said that they are going to approve the shot for all kids, ages 5 to 11, I believe. I'm not sure if it's for under 5 yet. And that they said that they expect an agreement from the FDA, so they're just going to approve it. And that the Pfizer already has their shots ready to send out at whatever it is, a third potency. I'm extremely bothered by this. In fact, I don't get bothered very often, but I'm very frustrated with the fact that they are trying to make it look like kids need this shot. And even if I get censored or kicked off for saying this, I need to make it clear without beating around the bush. I do not believe that any children or teenagers, other than those at extremely high risk or that have pre-existing conditions, I do not believe that the average kid running around should need a COVID shot. I do worry about myocarditis. I do worry about pericarditis. But more than the short-term effects, the long-term effects on heart health and brain health. And this has been shown in many studies to be an issue. People are ignoring it, and people are so fucking dug in with their partisanship that they can't even see it. Even those who support this same shot for adults. To pretend that it's okay for kids without doing your research, I'm extremely offended and bothered by those who say kids should get this shot. Because if you believe this, it means you haven't done enough research. But maybe I'm wrong. I need to leave that out there. I don't know. But one thing that's been made clear is that this is about, quote, getting back to normal and protecting the population, the vulnerable population. The vulnerable population is not children. Less than 100 kids, I believe, have died from COVID from the beginning. And so, I don't want to beat this horse into the ground, all right? This is an issue that we all contend with on a daily basis. And if I don't talk about it, I feel like I'm doing an injustice to my subscribers, to myself, my family, my podcast here, which I'm making. That I pay for my podcast hosting, okay? By the way, on the side note, you're welcome to support me on Patreon. I appreciate all of you. On YouTube, they can censor anything they want. And there are so many omitted discussions about this. And I firmly hope that if there's a human being out there who researches this or watches this, they can see that I am not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not a crazy conspiratorial moron. I'm a person who actually supports vaccines. Just got one for my son a month ago. Well, I got him all. Both of my kids, as well as myself, my wife, we're all vaccinated for various things. But this particular one, no, none of us are. And when it comes to me and her, as when you look at the frontline healthcare workers and frontline, medical workers leaving their posts because they don't want this, my God, it is shameful that people on the left are willing to stand up for this, even though they were the same ones chanting to support these workers. Support the workers, the frontline workers. All of a sudden they mean nothing to you because they want to choose what they put in their body. You think it's selfish? Do you think if somebody showed up at your house to save your life, if an ambulance showed up when you were dying or a fire truck showed up when your house was on fire, are you going to ask those people if they have a shot or not? I don't think so. So that's my rant. That's how I feel. And I feel trapped because I don't want to be labeled as a right-wing nutcase, because I'm not. I just don't buy into it. But I see how politics has obscured the left's mind. They have lost their mind. The Democrats have completely lost it. The people who call themselves liberals have lost it. The generation of, the old joke about the avocado toast eating generation. I used to just say, God, that's just so just ignorant and unaware of what's really going on. But in a way, if you look at what's going on in the world with the current generation coming up, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, they're often some of the ones who are pushing for this the hardest because they believe their government has their best interest at heart. And I'm sorry that I don't. I've seen how these things go. And many recalls on medicines over the years, I have to make a risk assessment for myself and for my own family. And I have. That's how I feel. So, hopefully I didn't cross any lines here. I appreciate all of you listening. And if you want to hear the more hardcore version of this and where I really let go, visit my Odysee page. That's Odyssee. They are kind of a new hosting platform. It's a little slower, a little more, it's a learning curve, and I'm trying to figure it out. And it's pretty young. It's only been around for a year, but you can still say what you want. Unfortunately, yes, you're going to get trapped with a bunch of people blaming the Jews for everything in the world and calling you a kike. But get past that, and at least you can have a true discussion. The unfortunate truth is, you're going to have to hear some nasty things if you want to have real discussions in this world. And we can't be a bunch of Sallys about it. So, thicken up your skin, motherfuckers. I'll talk to y'all next time. Thanks for coming. Peace out. If you want to hear the rest of it, come check out the podcast.